Hey, friend, welcome back to the show. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm glad to be here too. Today's episode is our season finale. I can't believe it. It's been a very long season, but I'm so proud of us for making it to this point. I kind of feel like I'm at that point, similar to nature, where it's very much time to just slow down, quiet down, enjoy quality time with friends and family, and just take some things off of my plate right now to just rest and relax and get re-inspired and come back refreshed. So that's what I'm doing. I am listening to my body and I am honoring a season of rest. And in doing so, I'm going to be putting the podcast down for a very brief break, but I'll also be working on some other projects that I'll be really excited to announce by the time that we come back. This has always been a seasonal show, and it's kind of hard to believe for me that haven't been going hard like every week for the entire year in 2024, but I've definitely gone hard for most of the year. We've been publishing episodes for the most part pretty consistently every week, sometimes multiple times a week for the last several months since like early March. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of us for sticking it out together. I'm very proud of you for still being here and tuning into the show and supporting the show and listening. If you are someone who has been listening from the very beginning, maybe you're a new listener, you just found out about the show, maybe you dibble and dabble in and out of episodes, but you always come back. I love that for me and I love that for you. It would mean so much to me if you took a moment to leave a review for the show. I would really appreciate it. Reviews help to boost the show so that other people might find it and discover it, and it would help me out a lot. It's free to do, doesn't cost you anything but a couple of seconds of your time to leave a 5-star rating and an encouraging thought. So if you haven't had a chance to rate or review the podcast yet, please take a moment to do so. It would mean a lot to me and it would help the show out a lot to keep it going. It would help to foster community and some interaction between us. So if you could take some time, I would really appreciate it. And I'd be so grateful for it. Thank you so much to everyone who has taken a moment to leave a comment on Spotify or on YouTube, or who has taken a moment to send a text to the show or to me personally to share thoughts and feedback. I really appreciate it. It means more than you know. So thank you. So with that being said, let's jump into wrapping this season up. Oh my goodness. I've expressed many times on the show that I'm always looking to improve it. Like any other podcast in the early stages, in the early years, you experiment a lot to find what works and works well. And, might have had audio trouble in the past. I'm always striving to improve that and make that better because I know personally, as a podcast listener, bad audio will turn me off from a show or an episode. So I'm always looking to improve that. I'm always looking to improve the visual aspect of the show. I'm always looking to improve the quality of the show, the type of conversation. And I have a lot of creative freedom with this show. It's my show. I'm an indie podcaster. I'm not beholden to sponsors. I'm not beholden to networks or anything at this stage. So I can do a lot with that. And I try to do my best within my capacity. I'm always striving to improve the show. But if you have thoughts or feedback about what you'd like to hear, who you'd like to hear on the show as a guest, anything like that, I am open to that. So you can always reach out to me and the show on social media at the Prolific Hub Pod or at podcast@theprolifichub.com over email or sending a text to the show. There's always a link to send a text in the episode description, also known as the show notes of the episode. If you go to the episode and look at the full description of it, there's always a link to send a text to the show. You can do that as well, or leave your thoughts in a review, preferably with a 5-star rating to help your girl out. But I'm always open to that. and I'm always thinking about how to improve it. One thing I did in 2024 was rebrand this show to align with an earlier vision of the show and a larger entrepreneurial goal. And while that goal and that vision still holds fast, I have, evolved and grown as an individual and solo podcaster, like solo host, over the course of the last year. And I've been thinking a lot about a name for the show that connects with that and aligns with that more deeply and aligns with more of the individual projects that I've been working on that I'll be launching soon. So stay tuned. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is right now, but I have been thinking about it. If there is a drastic change to the name or anything like that, you will know first. I'll let you know. And yeah, I have been putting some thought into what it will look like to go forward and how I want the show, what it represents, the name of it, and everything to be aligned with that. So stay tuned. More to come on that in the near future. That being said, I'm going to be taking this time to enjoy the holiday season with my family, slow down, quiet down, honoring the season that I am in personally, honoring the season that nature is in environmentally, just taking some time to pause, to reflect, and to dream and imagine and visualize what I want for myself in 2025 and beyond, what I want for my community, and how I am working and striving toward that. So I'm excited to slow down. I'm grateful for the privilege and the opportunity to slow down, and I don't want to waste it. But I thought to myself, what better way to close out the season than to take a brief look back at the whole season and to kind of put episodes into categories so that if you're discovering this show for the first time, or maybe you've been an on and off again listener, or maybe you've been a consistent listener, but you want to go back to an episode that really resonated with you, I thought it would be fun to sort of do a roadmap and take a look back at some previous episodes and sort of group them into different areas that might be of interest to you, depending on what you're focused on in this season. So the themes of this podcast are life, personal growth and development, spirituality, and creativity and creative entrepreneurship. So those are sort of the buckets that I've put things in. I say often that the nature of the human spirit is creative, and in these areas of life, personal development or growth, creativity, creative entrepreneurship, spirituality, there's a common thread between all of them. As creatives, our lives are very intertwined with our growth, with our beliefs and our convictions. Our creativity a lot of times is inspired by the things we experience in life. So I definitely believe that there's a common thread, but if you are focused on particular areas more than others, I thought it would be cool to sort of group episodes along these lines from this past season in case you want to check them out for the first time or check them out again. So a bunch of our newer and more recent mini episodes really align with the personal development and personal growth area. So episode 63, how to recognize when you're out of alignment, key signs, and how to realign your life. That is a great place to start if you are seeking episodes around personal development. We've talked a lot on this show about the fear of being seen in many episodes, but I specifically did an episode about that, overcoming the fear of being seen, how to heal and embrace visibility, which is episode 62. So that's worth checking out if you are someone who is overcoming that fear and learning to feel comfortable with being seen. For those of us who struggle with imposter syndrome, episode 61 is for you. Get in love. We're kissing imposter syndrome goodbye. Imposter syndrome truly has no space and no value in our lives, and it takes up too much of our energy. So this is a powerful episode for folks who are struggling with imposter syndrome and need to be reminded of who they are and their power So if that's you, definitely check out that episode. Episode 60 talks about purpose, allowing your purpose to evolve. It talks about the fact that for many of us, we have multiple purposes in the course of our lifetime, and sometimes sticking to one thing is not always the right thing for us. So episode 60 really invites us to consider that and think about it and to adjust accordingly, to do what feels right, to do what makes our life feel right, to do what our purpose is designed to do, which is evolve. Episode 58 talks about conviction. Specifically, those of us that are driven largely by conviction to our work, belief systems that support us on our creative journey. So definitely check that episode out if that aligns or resonates with you. If you are an avid listener of this show, you know that I love a good personality test or modality that helps us to discover ourselves more deeply. Actually working on a freebie around this that'll be available soon, so stay tuned. But if you are interested in that, if you are curious about Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, human design, astrology, all of the things, episode 40 is for you. Unlocking potential with personality tests and self-development. Check that one out if that is of interest to you. Taking it way back to episode 36, where we talked about doing things scared, doing them alone, doing them anyway. Episode 36 is about how stepping out of your comfort zone transforms your life. So if you are in a place where you feel stuck in your comfort zone, you need a nudge, you want to talk through some things, episode 36 is for you. Along the lines of personal growth and development, I would also recommend heading back to episode 28, Healing the Inner Child, Vulnerability, Boundaries, and Joy, which is a solo episode where I dive deep on a couple of personal things that were happening at the time of recording. And I think that's a valuable personal development, personal growth episode. Taking it way back to episode 22. Now, the audio quality is not great on that one, but if you are interested in concepts around living your dream life, that is an episode that makes sense to check out. So definitely take it back there if you'd like. One of our more recent episodes, episode 64, which is called Transforming Doubt into Success, the Power of Positive Self-Talk, Visualizing Success, and Defeating Negativity, is also a great one. If you are still doubting yourself for any reason, or maybe setting yourself up for failure by speaking negativity over outcomes or opportunities before jumping to what's the best that could happen, that's a great episode to check out. So be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. So those are a bunch of the episodes that I think align deeply with personal growth and development. So of course, check those out if you haven't already, or if you already have and you want to hear them again, definitely take another listen. Okay, so let's get into creativity and creative entrepreneurship. That is the bread and butter of this podcast. It is the core of this podcast. And there are so many episodes throughout the history of the show that really speak to this. But some of my favorites are the following. Episode 56, Overcoming Fear to Unleash Your Entrepreneurial Vision, featuring Kat Sterling. That episode is great because it has a lot of practical tips for entrepreneurs who are looking to start a business that I think are really valuable. But there are some elements as well about conviction, faith, having vision, and a number of the things that are required to even pursue this path. So definitely check that episode out if you haven't already, or if you already have and you might want to take another listen. Go on ahead and do that, friend. Episode 55, featuring Minister Jazz, Culture, Afrofuturism, and Ethical AI. Now, if you are curious or interested in AI, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros, the cons, all the things, but interested in it from the lens of being a Black person who's involved with AI, or an Indigenous person who's involved with AI, or a person of color, how we take our stand in this space, how we create our own tables in this space, how we ensure that we are represented in this space. That is the conversation for you. So make sure you check that one out, friend. We spoke all things faith and freedom on the creative journey with Chimdi Ihezie, and you can check that out in episode 54. One of my favorite and best performing conversations of all time is Timeless Wisdom from Modern Creatives, a conversation with Vanessa Aldrich. Vanessa is so brilliant and masterful in how she weaves and ties the connection between creativity and spirituality together. That conversation was literally soul nourishing, which I think is also feedback we've gotten about the show, but that's a perfect way to describe it. As a creative, that is one you have to listen to if you haven't already. So be sure to check that episode out. Practical tips for marketing your business, for being present online in this era is definitely going to be episode 46, Empowering Women Entrepreneurs in the Digital Age, featuring Michelle Thames. Such a jam-packed episode with a lot of great tips about business, about marketing, about showing up online to promote yourself and your work, and definitely worth your time if that is what you're interested in, friend. Episode 45, Top Branding and Business Tips for Entrepreneurs. That was a solo episode I'd done where I shared some tips and also recapped some resources that I thought were really valuable for new and existing entrepreneurs. So if you are interested in that, definitely head back to that episode and check it out. We also spoke with my sister and former co-host of the show, Tasia Marie, in episode 44, titled From Teacher to Creative Entrepreneur, Tasia Marie's art and wellness journey. And we talked a lot about her art and her clothing line and her jewelry and all of the things that she is pouring into to create on this entrepreneurial path, and how the road isn't always smooth, but it's worth taking to discover yourself, to create what you want to create, and to make your mark. So any teachers out there can relate, that is the episode for you, but also anyone who finds themselves on a similar path. This would be a great episode to check out. Similar to our episode with Minister Jazz, I also did a solo episode about AI called Mastering AI, Exploring the Creative Frontier for Entrepreneurs. That is episode 38. And I don't sound great in that episode because I was sick at the time recording it, but I didn't want to trash the entire episode, so I kept it. And I think it's an important episode, especially as creatives, about how we can learn to utilize these tools for our benefit instead of allowing them to overrun us. So I still feel pretty strongly about that, although I know a lot of people have very mixed feelings and opinions about this. There are so many ethical dilemmas with AI, of course. However, as a creative, I feel like there are many tools that can support us on our creative and entrepreneurial journeys. And I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves when we don't allow them to support us in the ways that they can. So definitely an episode worth listening to if you are curious. And again, mind how I sound. I was sick at the time. Sorry, it does not sound great, but worth checking out if that is something you're interested in. Taking it back even further to episode 34. Solopreneur versus entrepreneur. Which path is right for you? That's a solo episode where I'm kind of grappling around solopreneurship and entrepreneurship and what that looks like for me now in this season and where I imagine it might go in the future. So worth checking out if you are too someone who's trying to balance that dance or figure out what it's going to look like for you. Maybe how you start off is not how you finish. Maybe how you intend to go is not how it works out, but something to consider. Definitely an episode that shows fellow solopreneurs that they are not alone and that they are seen. So if that's you, definitely check that episode out. Taking it all the way back to episode 30. So for anyone who's listening to this show, who's thinking to themselves, I want to start a podcast. I have things to say, but you're not sure where to start for any reason. Episode 30 is for you. It's all about how to start a podcast, and it has a lot of tips for beginners. So if you'd like to start one, definitely check episode 30 out. It has a lot of resources linked in the show notes and described throughout the course of the episode. And I hope that it will help you and support you on your journey. And if you do start a podcast or you have started a podcast, maybe you're inspired to do so by listening to this show or some others, definitely let me know. Okay, so those are some highlights for the creativity and creative entrepreneurship category of our roadmap. So if that's the area you're most interested in, I definitely recommend starting with those episodes that I just mentioned. Let's move on to spirituality and soulful living, because that is also a huge element of the show, another aspect of the core of this show, and another element that is deeply intertwined and weaved throughout many episodes of this podcast. So let's talk about some of those episodes that you should definitely check out in the spirituality and soulful living category. We'll start with episode 51. You remember that one? A Free Woman's Journey to Love and Liberation, in conversation with Ebony Janice Moore. That is a powerful episode. Ebony Janice is such a brilliant woman who's so rich in spirit, in mindfulness, in critical thinking, who has such an artistic and brilliant way of taking large concepts and distilling them down to very, very simple ways of thinking. Ebony Janice Moore is also the author of All the Black Girls Are Activists, and it was such an honor to have her on the show. So that's definitely one to start with and check out if you haven't already, or if you have and you want to listen to it again, definitely head back to episode 51. Episode 48, Achieving Spiritual Balance and Success, featuring Fabi Cordaro. That was such an enlightening episode. I thought it was so rich in conversation. It was so rich in really leaning into your intuition, your mindfulness, listening to your body, using that to support your creativity, listening to yourself. We talk about human design in that episode as well. So if you are someone who is curious about how to use your energy and wield your energy in the world to achieve the things that you want to achieve, to create the things that you want to create, this is an episode that you'll definitely want to listen to. Episode 31, Sensuality, Spirituality, and Creativity, featuring Levon Briggs. Hands down, one of my favorite episodes of all time. It's such a rich conversation on so many levels. Levon is a dynamic multi-hyphenate. She wears so many hats and so many roles. She's a writer, an author, producer, a poet, a pastor, so many hats and things, and such a gift in this world. She's also the author of Sensual Faith, and we had such a rich conversation, and it was so beautiful. So if you are curious about the relationship between sensuality, spirituality, and creativity, I definitely recommend episode 31, featuring Levon Briggs. Another one of my favorites, oh my goodness, I have so many. I love every episode. There are so many of the ones I'm mentioning in this episode and ones I'm not even mentioning that are just so good and worth checking out. But another one of my favorites is definitely episode 27, Soul Searching with Brittany Demosthene, founder of the Soul Seekers Club. It's such a good episode, and it's such a good conversation for anyone who is thinking about pivoting, for anyone who is interested in what their life feels like, not looks like, feels like. That is a very rich episode to listen to. So if you haven't already checked that one out, or if you did and you need a refresher, definitely check it out again. One thing I love about listening to episodes I've listened to in the past is that they meet me in new seasons, kind of like those of us who reread books we've read before, or maybe rewatch shows or movies or films that we've seen before. we always meet them in new seasons. So we always have different takeaways from the first time we ever saw the thing or read the thing. And that's one reason why I love just kind of going back to episodes that deeply impacted me and listening to them again in a different season of my life, because perhaps I might have a different takeaway. So definitely check out episode 27 if you haven't already. Right before that, episode 26, Dream, Rest, and Play, featuring Colored Girls Liberation Lab founder Jen Roberts. Another one of my favorite episodes. In that episode, we explore dreaming and resting and playing so much, which is at the heart and the core of Color Girls Liberation Lab. And it's such a beautiful organization. Jen is doing such beautiful work, and I'm so grateful that we had a chance to chat all about that work and how it's showing up in her life and what it means for her. And I think that's a really powerful episode. So if you haven't checked that one out yet, definitely head back and check that one out. Those are the top episodes that I would recommend for the spirituality and soulful living category. So if you haven't checked any of those episodes out yet, definitely do check them out. If you have listened to them before, like I said, perhaps listening to them in a new season might hit differently. So check them out again. Okay, friends. So for our last category, I'm squishing some things together. So we're going to call this one the social impact, culture, and community category, as well as transformational stories and inspiration. So all of these that I'm about to mention fit somewhere under that umbrella and somewhere in that theme, and they're really powerful. Definitely check them out if you haven't already. Let's kick off with episode 53, which was such a powerful episode. It had everything to do with culture and community, as well as transformational stories and inspiration. So, episode 53, Overcoming Adversity and Redefining Success, The Power of Reinvention, featuring Shanera Pierce. I loved that episode. Shanera and I worked in similar industries years ago, and it was so great to reconnect in these new capacities of our lives and to learn everything about what she's been up to and her business, Mixational, and how that comes full circle in the end. I won't spoil it. If you haven't listened to that episode, you'll be very surprised to listen to the whole episode and how we end it. It's really a full circle conversation on so many levels. So definitely check that episode out if you're looking for some transformational stories, some inspiration. That is definitely an episode that you want to tune into. Episode 49 is a solo episode, How to Dream Big and Act Boldly for Success. And I think it's a really powerful and insightful episode and reminder that our minds, our words, our actions can help to create the reality that we want. And I'm not just saying that in a woo-woo kind of way. I'm very aware of a lot of the circumstances that many people live in. It's not always as easy to just think positively and manifest for good with like dire circumstances. However, in situations where you do have that spaciousness and you do have that privilege and you do have that capacity, it's a reminder and a call to action to really visualize the life that you want and take aligned and inspired action to achieve that. So definitely one worth checking out if you haven't already. Another one of my favorites, Success, Stardust, and Social Justice, featuring Tracy L. Rogers. Episode 41. Definitely check that one out. That one is partially for my stars and moons girly because we do talk about astrology. Tracy is a certified life coach and an astrologer, and we talk a lot about happenings in our own lives, happenings in the world, and some of the predictions that Tracy suggested would happen and pan out throughout the rest of 2024 and into 2025 have already started coming true. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and it's not slowing up anytime soon. So Definitely check that one out if you haven't already. There are several episodes related to that one. If you're interested in astrology, if you're interested in, personality tests, all of those things, and those are worth checking out as well. But I highly recommend going back to episode 41 and starting with that one. Really powerful conversation. Another episode that aligns with this theme of social impact, culture, community, transformational conversations is definitely one of my favorite episodes of all time. A Journey Through the Primordial Soup featuring Adriana Michelle, the Death Alchemist. That is an episode where we dive deep into death and grief and have a conversation around it, have a conversation that is warranted, that is needed, that is well deserved. I feel like so often in the West, unfortunately, we disregard conversations around death. We don't treat it in a way that a lot of other cultures do. We don't acknowledge it, honor it, celebrate our loved ones in the way that many other cultures do. And I think that makes us so disconnected from death in a way that ultimately hurts us. I think this disconnection from the conversation is what unfortunately disrupts a lot of family planning, a lot of estate planning, just feelings and empathy around the subject, around facing the reality that death is inevitable. And that talking about it is not going to bring it to you any sooner than it's meant to come to you. It is the one thing in life that we are all promised. And I do think that it's a very rich and dynamic conversation, and I enjoyed it so much. It's one of my favorite episodes. If you are someone who is struggling with grief or loss, or perhaps there are other things on your mind, if you're struggling in this season, I do think that there is a lot of comfort in that episode. I do think that there is a lot of grace to be seen in that episode. So definitely one worth checking out if you haven't already, or if you know someone who is struggling with grief or loss. It's definitely an episode worth sending. So be sure to check it out if you haven't already. And if you have already listened and you want to revisit it in a different season in your life now, definitely check it out again. That is episode 39. Okay, moving on to episode 37, Wellness for Black Women, featuring Ashante Renee. Ashante is a friend and a mentor and someone that I have worked with in many capacities over the years, and I have so much deep respect for her, and it was such a great episode. I felt so loved by the end of that episode, and I just loved our conversation. Definitely one worth checking out if you haven't already, and if you do and you have the means, consider supporting the Axon Group and consider supporting Susu House. Definitely check that episode out if you haven't already. Another one of my best performing episodes, and one that I loved working on and being in conversation with the guest on, was episode 33, Healing Trauma Through Memes and Humor, featuring Margot Feldman. So Margot has the page on Instagram, Softcore Trauma. And as I mentioned to Margot in the episode, that account just has made me feel really seen at different points of my life. Looking at the memes, distilling all of this complex language and study and education around trauma, and distilling it down to something very simple in memes that helps people to find relatable content that reminds them that they are worthy of love and care and that they are not their trauma. Just a really powerful episode. So if you haven't checked that one out yet, check it out. We did focus quite a bit on academia in that episode. So if you are someone who is considering school, or you're in school, or you're going back to school, that might be an episode worth listening to as well. And that episode with Margot is episode 33. Okay, so episode 32, The Power of Connection During Seasons of Loneliness. It's not lost on me that we are still going through a loneliness epidemic. It's not lost on me that men are leading in that department. It's not lost on me that a lot of people are struggling in many different ways. And when you're worried about a million different things, sometimes maintaining relationships or friendships or connections to people you care about, like for some people that gets dropped to the wayside, like relationship dynamics change, people move on from each other, people are not building friendships in the same ways that we have in the past. And for many people, maybe they're doing it online, so there's a limit to the in-person connection. There are so many factors that are going into and driving this loneliness epidemic, and obviously going through the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown did not help that. So I think this is an important episode. I pull elements from other episodes to weave it into the conversation. It's technically a solo episode, but there are some clips from 2 other episodes weaved into that, and I think it's really important. So if you are personally someone who is struggling with loneliness in this season, especially as we are moving through the holiday season, the winter months, and everything else, I think it's an important episode to lean into and tune into, and an important reminder to foster community when and where you can, to combat the loneliness epidemic and to combat the loneliness that you feel. So definitely check episode 32 out if you haven't already. If you know someone who is struggling with loneliness, share an episode with them. Another episode that falls into this category of transformational stories and inspiration is definitely episode 23, Trial by Fire and Faith, featuring Donnie P. It's a really powerful episode about overcoming adversity, pivoting throughout your career, the journey as an entrepreneur, and so much more, and being your full and authentic self, because Donnie P definitely showed up as her full and authentic self, and we love that. So check out that episode if you haven't already. Or if you have, it's been a while, maybe you want to check it out again. Definitely one worth listening to. And definitely on the culture, community, social impact front, if you haven't already, and if you are someone who is going through the motions right now and mentally, emotionally, physically, all the things, preparing for what is to come between now and end of January and everything in between, definitely listen to my bonus solo episode, America's Got a Problem, Black Women Are Tired. That one is for you. That one was fresh off of the election results, but there are so many aspects of that conversation that are rich for this time and rich for going forward. So definitely an episode worth checking out if you haven't already. All right, friend, that's all I've got for our roadmap. So definitely check out those episodes if you haven't already in the categories that feel most aligned for you. We had our personal development and personal growth category with several episodes. We had our creativity and creative entrepreneurship category, also with several episodes. We had our spirituality and soulful living category with several episodes. And we had our last category that combined a bunch of themes around social impact, culture, and community, as well as transformational stories and inspiration. If any episodes spoke to you and you haven't checked them out yet, definitely add them to your queue. Check them out. And if there are any that you've listened to before that you are reminded from this episode that you want to listen to again, add them to the queue, friend. Check them out. And be sure that if there are episodes that you deeply enjoy, that moved you, that impacted you in any way, share it with a friend. Let them know that you listen to this show, that you enjoy it, and that you think that they should check it out too. All right, friend. I want to wish you the happiest holiday season possible, also the healthiest holiday season possible. Take care of yourself, take care of your health, take care of your community. I hope that your holiday season is warm and cozy and easeful and peaceful and exactly what you need. If the holidays are a rough time of year for you for any reason, I hope that you do exactly what you need to do to take care of yourself and to lean on your community and your chosen family or your loved ones at this time, so that this season feels less cumbersome for you. I hope that this season ultimately treats you with gentleness and ease. This season of the show has been so incredible and so transformative for me personally in so many ways. I hope it's impacted you the same way. I'm so grateful for the incredible guests that we've had this season, and I'm so excited about the incredible guests we have to come. So definitely stay tuned. You know, it's funny. My coach asked me recently, if you took a break from your podcast, who would miss it? And at first I was like, but if you're not watching on video, I just kind of like pulled back a little and did a side eye. But it's something to think about. I know as a listener that like shows I enjoy go on break and I do miss them and I wait for them to come back and I get excited when they come back. So I am trusting that for folks who listen to this show, to my show, that you will feel the same way and that you will be here when I get back from this brief break. And, this season has just been a reminder to me. My mentor and friend, Ashante Renee, said this on our episode together, episode 37, Wellness for Black Women, where she said that this podcast is a healing modality for me and everyone who listens, everyone who connects with it. So I know that I will miss doing it while I'm on break. I know that you listening will miss our weekly get-togethers until I'm back, but I trust that you'll be here when I get back. And I am so excited to just rest and reset and reconnect with you very soon. This podcast has felt really good to me. Like through this work, I personally have been transformed in many ways. Doing this show has affirmed to me and reminded me that what I'm doing matters and it has value and it has purpose and it's helping someone and it's connecting with someone and someone is relating to it. So that is what I do this for. That is what matters to me most. And I am very grateful to have found this creative outlet, this modality, and this platform to help support me on this journey and also to support you and connect with you. So very grateful for that. I think the beautiful thing about creating a body of work or a body of art that you feel really, really proud of is that you can return to it at any time. So I can return to this show at any time, just like you can return to this show at any time and revisit episodes that maybe you hadn't checked out before that you want to now, or revisit episodes that really stood out to you previously that you want to hear again in a new season, in a new space in life. That's the beautiful thing about putting your work art there for others to know and to see and to witness and to experience. And that feels really rewarding and really fulfilling. I think the beauty of doing this show too is that I have multiple touch points with each episode. So I'm preparing for an interview with guests, or I'm preparing for a solo episode. I'm doing the episode, producing it, I'm editing it, and then when it's out in the world, I'm listening to it again. And that doesn't stop me from going back to some of my favorites every now and then. So definitely soaking it all in and enjoying it every step of the way. Anyway, friend, I know the show is a part of your routine. I just want to assure you that this is not goodbye. This is just a see you later. I'm just taking a break for a little while, but I will be back very soon. I'm aiming to be back by the end of January 2025 or beginning of February 2025. So either way, stay tuned. I'll be back very soon. And if you would like to support me and the show in the meantime, definitely listen to episodes you haven't listened to before, or listen to ones you've listened to in the past that you want to revisit. Share the podcast with at least one friend, but definitely more if you want to, or if you can, drop it in the group chat, send it on WhatsApp, send it in your iMessage group chat, Facebook chat, Instagram, DM, like wherever you are. Share the episode. Share the podcast with your network. I really appreciate it. Please take a moment to rate and review the show. If all you have energy for is to tap 5 stars, I would love that and that would mean so much to me. But if you have an extra 5 seconds, an extra 10 seconds of your time where you can take a moment to actually write a review for the show, it would be really impactful. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, it's easy to go to the show and scroll down and leave a review. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating over there, and you can add comments to your favorite episodes. So if you're revisiting any, if you're listening to any for the first time, leave a comment on the episode. Let me know what you think. Another way to connect with me is to send a text message to the show. There is a link in the show notes, episode description of every episode, to send a text to the show. So if you'd like to text the show and let me know what you think, any thoughts you'd like to share with me, please feel free to do that. If you're completely new here, if you're discovering this show later on after the season has ended for the first time, there's a whole binge-worthy catalog to check out. So definitely check it out and get caught up so that you're back in time for the next season. Just a friendly reminder and caveat that the show has evolved from its early stages. So if you listen from the very beginning, you'll see those changes. You'll see us go from multiple hosts to one. You'll see the conversations evolve from pop culture and current events to more evergreen content. So you'll witness that whole evolution, and I love that. So if you're discovering it for the first time, jump in. You can also send a voice note to the show. Voice notes are free to send. You can send a voice note for a brief period of time, share your thoughts with me. I can play those voice notes on future episodes and respond back to you that way during an episode, and I would love the opportunity to do that. So yeah, there are several ways to get in touch and show your support for the show. So any one of those that feel most comfortable for you, that feel the easiest for you, that feels lightweight for you, please consider supporting me and supporting the show in that way. All of the links to do all of these things are always in the show notes, in the episode descriptions. So easy to access. If you'd like to support the show in an even greater capacity, you can consider a recurring gift for as low as $3 a month. That would support the production of the show and support me to help keep the content coming, and I would love that. One of my goals that I've stated in several episodes back was that I would love to be able to offer small stipends to guests on the show to support them and support their work. That's one way to support the show and to help me achieve that goal, and also to help to support the show to continue. So you can consider that as well, and a link to do that as well is in the episode description. I would also like to say that, in the words of Jujube from A Little Juju podcast, this show is a labor of love, but labor nonetheless. So if you consider showing up and showing out in that way, just know I am deeply appreciative and grateful for you, and you will, of course, get a shout out on the show. Okay, not to be corny and cheesy, but they say distance makes the heart grow fonder. So I will miss you. I hope that you'll miss me too, but don't worry, I won't be gone for long. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you again very, very soon and bringing you new episodes very, very soon. Make sure that you're following the podcast on your favorite social media platform so that you never miss announcements, episode drops, when we'll be back, and all of that good stuff. You can find the show at the Prolific Hub Pod on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on all the platforms you enjoy. So find us there. You can also look at my pod roll. So my pod roll consists of all of the shows that I enjoy. And if you go to the episode website, or if you go to the podcast website, you'll be able to see my pod roll, all of the shows that I like and enjoy. I think at the end of like season 2, I had done like a whole spiel about several shows that I really liked and enjoyed. And many of those are still on my pod roll. So that's something to check out. If you're curious about what I listen to, like what shows I like, if you're looking for new shows yourself, like that is a great way to find a couple that I would recommend you checking out. I'll make sure that my pod roll is linked in the show notes below. And if you do check out any of those recommendations while I'm away, just don't forget to come back here. Like, don't forget about me. I'll be back very soon, end of January, early February 2025. So it won't be that long of a break, and I'll see you again very soon. Make sure that you continue following the show on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that follow button. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode drop when there are visuals for episodes. And yeah, that's a great way to stay in the loop about new episodes that drop. All right, now for real this time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Thank you for lending me your time, your energy, and your ears. I appreciate you for being here, and I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you this season, and I'm so excited for our next season. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to catch up with you again in 2025. All right. Until soon, friend. Bye.